Hey guys, Steven here with SCS Pickleball, and today we're jumping into a comparative analysis between the J2NF, the NFT, the NFK, and the FC+. So the NFT, the titanium version, was not in my original dedicated review of these paddles because I hadn't received it yet. I've put a lot of time on these paddles now, and I have a lot of things to share with you guys, so without further ado, let's dig straight into it. As far as discount codes go, on the titanium version, you can use my STS10 discount code, which works on every paddle on the Honolulu website outside of the Kevlar variants. So for the titanium, you'll be using STS10. For the NF, the carbon fiber version, it's STS10. For the NFK, which is the Kevlar version, it's going to be STS Pickleball, which is my generalized code that works on every website in the space. We did that just because they have a $20 off specifically on their Kevlar paddles, and then they do 10% off on all their other paddles, so just a little bit of a difference there. And then also on the FC Plus, you can use my code STS10 as well for 10% off on this one. Also, if you want to support my channel for free, a nice free way of doing that is just hitting the subscribe button, hitting that bell notification next to it if you always want to be notified every time I drop a video, so you're always in the know on new tech and new paddles in the space. You can like the video and leave a comment down below. I read all the comments and I love responding to all of your guys' messages. So anyways, get right back into it. So a quick little update in my life. I took a few weeks off from YouTube, played a ton of pickleball. I've been primarily playing with these NF variants, and it's been really nice, honestly. It was a nice mental break. Never really shared this on here, but I do have pretty intense IBS and some autoimmune issues going on. So life has never really been that easy for me. It's been going on for years, over 10 years for me. I actually just underwent a microbiome therapy to help re-inoculate my microbiome with healthier bacteria. So we'll see if that works out over time. But yeah, but I probably should have done a video and just let you guys know that I was going to be taking a break, but it wasn't really a planned break. Everything kind of fell into place, and then I did the therapy, and I just decided to take a couple weeks and play a lot of pickleball and just kind of do a little mental reset. So my apologies for not being around for the past few weeks. But that being said, let's jump into this. So I did receive the NFT finally, so the titanium variant of these notched foam paddles. And honestly, I am really enjoying the NFT. I know that you guys know that the J2K Plus was my top pick for 2025 and definitely was my favorite of the Plus variants. Also, the J2K was also my favorite of the J2 variants, the original ones without the Plus. And these ones with the notched foam, to be quite honest, the power is still there with the titanium version and the carbon fiber version. So really the only reason that you would want to pick up a Kevlar version is if you want a little bit more rigidity off the face, if you want a little bit more pop off the face. For me though, because the power is there and because they literally got right up to 0.43 in the PB core testing, the power is so high on these and so solid that I actually like a little bit less pop because it allows me to have a little bit more finesse. Something I'm working on a lot in my game now is really keeping my dinks down, my resets, keeping my reset trajectory at a really nice angle, and keeping my drops down and unattackable as well. And I find that with the carbon fiber and the titanium variant, I definitely have a lot more consistency in those areas. And those are areas that I'm prioritizing right now a lot in my personal game. So let's talk about the titanium variant because that was not a part of my dedicated review of these paddles because I hadn't received it yet, but I did get it in and I've put this through a ton of play sessions so far. And honestly, I am really enjoying this. So titanium variant, of course, it has a polyester thread basically running through the face material. And so what you're going to get from that polyester thread is a little bit more of a dampened feeling off the face, right? So if you have tennis elbow, this is going to reduce vibration a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. You can feel that in play. And then also just off the face, you're going to feel a little bit more of a plush nature off the face. It's not as rigid, it's not as firm or hard or tinny off the face as maybe a Kevlar variant or as some other paddles like the new Arma series from Holbrook I found to be very rigid off the face, which I'm not a huge fan of. I did like them quite a bit at the beginning because the power was so high on those Arma paddles, but ever since I got these, I realized, okay, well, you can have power and you can still have a nice plush feeling off the face, and that's what I love about these paddles. So yeah, so the titanium version is going to be the same power as the NF and the NFK, just with a little bit less pop, than the carbon fiber version. That's the only difference here. And I'll throw up the metrics for the titanium here in the video as well, so you can see what that looks like. The spin is still insanely solid. So one thing I noticed when I picked this up is that The carbon fiber version is their normal super high grit level. The Kevlar version also very gritty, but there's something different. There's something extremely frictiony and gritty about the NFT paddle, so the titanium version. It feels like there's more friction, almost just feels like sandpaper. It's kind of crazy. But again, they're always pushing these levels and making sure that they're optimizing every little aspect. And that's why Honolulu keeps coming up to the surface over and over year after year, because they are optimizing all these little details and really just making a super premium paddle. All right, so another thing that I've seen in the comments recently is people asking about the grip length. I did just recently measure this again, and it comes right up to 5.3 inches right at the top of the grip right here. And then 5.5 inches is just above that, right? So obviously, but it's it feels decent. I don't really have any issues with it. I'm 6'2". My hands are quite large, decently sized. And, is it a little more cramped than a true 5.5 inch handle? Sure. But there are always trade-offs, right? So if this taper was more vertical or, and less outwards on the taper, you would have a little bit less of a sweet spot on the bottom of the face, so that might feel a little bit more rigid or off-putting down there as far as the sweet spot is concerned. And also, if the grip length was larger, it would take away from the surface area of the face as well, because you have to give dimensions away, because you have to stay within the legal parameters dimensionally speaking, right? So there's always trade-offs there. I haven't noticed it be too big of a deal for my personal game, but I did want to share that with you guys, because I know that grip length and being able to do two-handed backhands is just such an important aspect of pickleball, especially these days. And I want to make sure that you guys are very knowledgeable on what you would be receiving if you went with these paddles. Okay, so lastly, I want to talk about how they're holding up, how the spin is holding up, and the overall durability of these paddles. So I've probably put the most amount of time so far on this J2NF variant. I did do spin testing on this just the other day. It had only dropped about 20 RPM, which really could be a variant of just human error, to be quite honest. So I would say that there hasn't been any loss of spin. I've been playing with this for about 2.5 months now, very consistently. This has been pulled out of my bag more than any other paddle in my arsenal currently. And to be honest, the spin is holding up exceptionally well. And then as far as the feeling off the face and as far as break-in goes, I haven't noticed any break-in at all. And that's one of the beautiful aspects that we're learning about full foam paddles, right? Is that polypropylene being essentially plastic, it has a lot more break-in. So it starts kind of more rigid, kind of breaks in, gets a little soft. And some of the Gen 3 variants are heating up and getting super hot, poppy and core crushing and all sorts of weird, inconsistencies that come along with polypropylene, right? The beautiful thing about foam, full foam or notched foam in this case, right, with the little puzzle pieces around the edge of the core of this paddle, is that it's very consistent. It literally plays exactly like it did when I pulled it out of the bag the very first time. There was no initial rigidity. There was no softening up. There was no excess power happening over time, right? It's just been extremely consistent, which is awesome to see. And I'm noticing that with all the variants. The J2NFK feels the exact same way. It's also holding up extremely well. I did spin testing on that recently as well. It was right up there with exactly what I had tested it on originally. And then the J2FC Plus, which is essentially constructed the same way a Gen 3 paddle is constructed, but with full foam instead of polypropylene. This one kind of surprised us, to be honest, because it's utilizing that Gen 3 construction around the perimeter of the full foam core. And we were thinking that it was going to have Gen 3 characteristics like more power, more pop, potentially even heating up over time, right? But I haven't noticed any of that with this paddle. In fact, like I said in my dedicated review of these paddles, the J2FC Plus is actually a little bit softer than the rest of them, right? So it's close in power, a little bit less power, but definitely a little bit less pop for sure. So this paddle is going to be great for a person that is looking for something that doesn't have as much power. You want something that's a little bit more controllable, but you still want to try a full foam paddle. And obviously, it's a decent price as well in comparison to the other full foam paddles in the market. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm playing and what's actually my favorites right now. So the FC Plus, I haven't been pulling out as much. The NFK, I've been playing with a decent amount, but I would say most of the time, I am loving the NF and the NFT. I am really, really enjoying these a ton. And so unlike other titanium paddles that I've tried in the past and some that I've received recently, titanium tends to be very smooth on the face. There's not much grit on it. It's very smooth. It lacks friction. And you really need friction for those little shorter shots at the net. So for backhand rolls and little flick shots, because when you're doing a quicker little shot like that, that is more pop based and more friction based as far as the spin is concerned, you're not pocketing the ball as much as you would like on a drive, right? So when you're driving the ball, you're putting more force, more energy into it, you get a little bit of that pocketing, which helps create spin, right? But when you're doing little flick rolls at the net, you need friction to create a ton of spin on those shots because you're not pocketing the ball. And that's why titanium paddles have never been the top pick for me in the past outside of Honolulu's variants, because their grit levels are always very, very solid. But, some of the other titanium paddles that I've tried, maybe I skipped doing a dedicated review on them, or I just wasn't wowed by them because the lack of friction really just isn't fun to play with in my personal game. I like friction, I like grit, I like tons of spin, and I want that grit for that spin for those little flick shots at the net, right? And so I get that with this. Plus, I get the really unique properties of a titanium face paddle, right? So you get that slightly more dampened feeling off the face. It's a little bit more just fulfilling. It's a little bit more satisfying to play with because it just feels more dampened. It feels more plush off the face, which I really, really enjoy. And so I would say the NFT and the NF would be my top picks. Okay, so the last thing before we wrap this video up, I'm just going to go through each one of these paddles and tell you who that paddle would be best suited for, okay? So the NFT is going to be for somebody who's looking for a little bit more vibrational dampening, something that has the least pop out of these variants outside of the FC Plus, but in the notched foam versions, this was going to have the least pop in comparison to the NF and the NFK, and that's really the only difference. So if you like something a little bit more dampened, a little bit more vibrationally dampened, and you're looking for a little bit less pop, but you still want to maintain that solid power, then the NFT would be for you. So the NF version, or the carbon fiber version, this one has a CFC layup, so carbon fiber, fiberglass, carbon fiber on the face. This one's going to be your Goldilocks paddle essentially. So this one's going to have a little bit more pop than the titanium version, a little bit less pop than the Kevlar version, still going to have very relative power to both and very relative spin to both. But this is going to be for somebody that just wants a very traditional feeling paddle off the face. So the NFK is going to be for somebody that is looking for a little bit more pop, and that's really the only difference. So a little bit more rigidity off the face. You don't get the vibrational dampening aspects of the titanium, but you do get a little bit more pop, a little bit more rigidity on the face, and that's really about it. And then so the J2FC Plus is going to be for somebody that is looking for a full foam paddle. You want to try something new, try something Gen 4, but you don't want something that has as much power as the notched foam variants, right? So you're looking for something that has maybe a little bit more power all court feel, and something that you can control a little bit better than the notch foam versions, right? So this is going to have less pop than those, a little bit less power than those, relative spin, but that's really the only differences. So small nuances, right? But you'll just have to ask yourself what you're looking for in your personal game, right? You're looking for a little bit less pop. You're looking for something more traditional, like carbon fiber. You're looking for a little bit more pop. You like a little bit more rigidity in your game. More pop is going to yield a little bit more, aggression, ability to attack at the kitchen line, right? Or to respond to somebody speeding up the ball. If I have a little bit more pop, I'm going to be sending that ball back at them a little bit quicker, right? But there's also downsides because a little bit more pop is also going to yield potentially harder dinks, right? Because you might be popping your dink up just a little bit higher than you would with the titanium version, which I've noticed. So I really like the carbon fiber and the titanium version. Still love the Kevlar version. But when I'm playing a little bit more of a high level game and I want that little bit of extra comfort and confidence, I do find myself pulling out the carbon fiber and the titanium version personally. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'm really excited to be back. I'm going to be posting videos very consistently, definitely every week. And I'm just excited to be back and sharing this stuff with you guys. I really appreciate you guys a lot. And it just means the world to me that my channel is doing well and that I can do this and share all this information with you guys and enjoy my love for pickleball and my love for sharing information. So, I appreciate you guys a lot. But yeah, consider subscribing if you haven't. And I hope you have a freaking wonderful day. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.